stop me if you've heard this one before. Psychonauts is an underrated gaming classic. I mean, at least we used to be able to say that, right? After an arduous development cycle where the game's original publisher, Microsoft Game Studios, canceled it, weird full circle, huh? And Majesco picked it up, developer Double Fine's first game release came out for Windows and Xbox in April of 2005, with a port to the PlayStation 2 just 2 months later. While it reviewed quite positively with critics, the game sold poorly, even leading to publisher Majesco quitting the big-budget game business entirely. As a kid in 2005, I wasn't aware of anything like that. I opened up a copy of PlayStation Magazine to see this cool ad with awesome art, and was immediately curious. It helped too that month's PS2 demo disc included with the magazine featured a trailer for the game as well. I didn't quite know what the game was, but I was sold on the visuals and the funny jokes in the trailer.
Lily, a deranged man is building an army of psychic death tanks to take over the world, and there's no one who can stop him, except for you and me.
Oh my god! Let's make out!
I had grown up on the games of humongous entertainment, point-and-click adventure games for children with silly, spirited characters, and 2D cartoon-like animation that really tailored my gaming taste up to present day. Got an interesting, offbeat, cartoony art style? I'm in, no questions asked. So, growing up, Psychonauts was one of my favorite games. Still is. I loved the characters and the super weird levels as you dove into various people's minds, both in sound and damaged states, and helped them with their various problems by platforming across extremely diverse landscapes and collecting a bunch of different items to progress. Looking back on it and replaying the game like every year if I'm being honest, I never found myself really interrogating the why. Why did the game work so well for me? There was the general sentiments shared across critics and audiences like story fun, jokes funny, creative levels. But no, what made it stand out for me and so many others from the dozens upon dozens of collectible platformers of the time? With Psychonauts 2 actually being a soon-to-be-released reality, I found myself replaying the original game. Again, on this playthrough, I really started analyzing and really thinking about specifically why I love this game so damn much. Sure, there's other platformers of the time that I absolutely adore, like the Sly Cooper series, Jak and Daxter, Battle for Bikini Bottom, but what does Psychonauts do that makes it so distinct from the competition? I think the first point, and one that's not discussed nearly enough, is that Psychonauts isn't just a platformer. It's a genre fusion of platforming and adventure games. Really, this should come as no surprise with LucasArts veteran Tim Schafer at the creative helm. You have dialogue trees and item inventory that's seriously put to use in levels like the Milkman Conspiracy. The adventure game genre DNA is there, really enhancing the platforming gameplay. You can interact with every camper on the grounds of Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp, each having their own mini plot lines and things to say.
A lot of things are gonna change around here, Rasputin. A power shift. Some big figures will be going down.
And, once you've progressed a bit in the game as Raz, be it finishing the next level or reaching a pivotal cutscene, most if not all of the campers would now be in new locations, waiting for Raz to interact to see how their stories progressed.
I apologize. Call off your goon, and I'll never bother you again. Ever!
The thing is, Benny, you're never gonna bother me again either way.
It was an extra layer of storytelling that players could choose to engage with if they wanted to. The world of Psychonauts truly feels lived in and alive, a sense of energy that not a lot of platformers I believe were able to accomplish in this generation of gaming. Sure, we started to see the emergence of more populous worlds like in Naughty Dog's Jak 2, but there they were just random NPCs with minimal interaction and no actual story significance, really. The lively cast of characters in Psychonauts was a revelation for the genre, and really drew players into the world, if they're willing, to put the effort in seeking out and discovering it. So yeah, the game defies genres, adding new flavor to your typical platformer. However, when replaying through the game, my mind kept coming back to the idea of healing. Not in a pick up some health kind of healing, but the healing of Psychonauts' eclectic cast. The story of Psychonauts is first and foremost a comedy, but there's a beating heart behind it that is really quite something. So real quick, to catch anyone up to speed on Psychonauts' premise itself, in case you don't know, is that in this world, Psychonauts are psychic secret agents who infiltrate people's minds to perform acts of espionage, defense, intel gathering, and yes, healing. You play as Raz, a 10-year-old circus runaway who has psychic abilities like telekinesis, clairvoyance, levitation, the works, who ends up at Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp to train with a bunch of other kids to hopefully one day become a Psychonaut. An evil plot, however, is put into motion that involves a deranged dentist revamping the psychic kids' brains and placing them into battle tanks to weaponize their psychic mental capacity. It's a lot. and perfectly in line with this very strange, silly universe. This leads to all the camp kids, save for Raz, getting kidnapped, leaving it up to the runaway to use his new psychic powers to save the kids and the camp teachers from this deadly plan as he travels into various minds to progress in the story. At this point, I know the story front to back. Listen, as I've said, I've been replaying this game at least once a year since its release in 2005. Reflecting on why it works so well now in the year 2021, I found myself drawn particularly to the game's memory vaults. Memory vaults are quite literal, little vaults with legs that run around the various minds of Psychonauts' cast. A good smack from Raz causes them to open, letting us learn more about the character we're helping. It really serves to deepen the experience, and it's wholly optional. If one would want to just play through the level and complete the objectives to wrap up and move on, they can. The vaults are there for anyone who wants to go that extra step in connecting with the cast, if they so desire. Let's focus on the character Gloria von Guten, for example. One of the first residents of Thorny Towers, home for the disturbed, we meet after finally getting into the asylum about halfway through the game. A former stage actress, we meet Gloria standing amongst various plants in a greenhouse. A spotlight stemming from the light of the moon is at the center as Gloria waves to an imaginary crowd, thanking them for their attendance for what we could assume is her latest performance. Even the plant pots around her have faces drawn on them, simulating a captive audience. Gloria appears gracious and maybe a bit vain, remarking upon seeing Raz and assuming he's an actor who has arrived to work with her, that she keeps getting paired up with younger co-stars. It's all relatively innocent enough until she steps out of the spotlight. Like a switch has been flipped, Gloria immediately becomes paranoid, bitter, and angry, accusing Raz of stealing an acting trophy she has nearby, as she thinks he feels she doesn't deserve it. Raz protests, but Gloria spirals, crying out how she never wanted to be famous, only loved. To cap it off, she yells at Raz that he's supposed to be dead, and causes the young boy to run to safety. Entering her mind, Gloria actually does not appear in her mind herself, unlike other characters. Instead, her inner muse, Bonita Soleil, stands in as an actress who can't perform due to the harsh, venomous critiques of an enormous, literally, critic. Gloria's level tasks Raz to finding a way to put a stop to a phantom who's terrorizing the theater within Gloria's mind.
I do so hope that my mother is proud of me.
This involves putting on different scenes and sets from various stage scripts that depict various points of Gloria's life growing up, even featuring a spotlight that can, on a dime, turn the set and story from happy and joyful to sad and miserable, emblematic of the form of bipolar disorder that Gloria is coping with. It's through these scenes, plus the even more insightful memory vaults, that Gloria's full story is revealed. Growing up, Gloria was the daughter of an actress. Her father was never around, and eventually her mother is persuaded by her significant other, her boyfriend and agent, to place Gloria in Hagatha Home boarding school so she can focus on her career rather than her daughter. At Hagatha Home, Gloria is trained rather viciously by an awful headmistress in the theatrical arts. Gloria actually ends up having a special gift for acting and ends up growing up to become a well-sought-after stage actress in her own right despite her troubled upbringing. Throughout her time, however, at Hagatha Home, she really just wanted her mother to return and take her home, writing her letters constantly only for them to never be delivered. Even as an actress, despite all the love she received from audiences, critics, her fans, her mother was who she did it all for, all to make her proud. As Gloria's fame grew, her mother's career waned, leading to her to become bitter and jealous of her daughter's success. This hurt Gloria deeply as she never really wanted to be famous. Gloria then made the decision to leave her mother behind, feeling she could never do anything well enough to make her proud. Her mother's bitterness and sadness only grew from there, tragically leading her to committing suicide by throwing herself from the roof of a building. Gloria is absolutely destroyed and traumatized by the news, affecting her ability to act and leading to her acclaim and fame to completely and utterly collapse from under her. Critics who once fawned over her performances now ridiculed her, leading her to leave acting behind in disgrace. Guilt-ridden from her mother's suicide, Gloria was unable to deal with the anger towards herself and the criticisms from those around her, developing her bipolar disorder and leading her to being committed to the Thorny Towers where Raz eventually finds her. That's a lot for a platforming game, right? At the same time though, this is what makes Psychonauts such a wonderful game. On the surface, it's an irreverent exploration of minds with crazy art styles and silly characters, but dig a little deeper and there's a lot more than meets the eye. Gloria's past is personified in the various plays performed by these perpetually mouth-breathing actors with questionable talents.
Sigh! When will my mother ever come take me home from this horrible school for girls? Do not worry, for I believe I see them floating here now in a magical balloon.
Then there's the critic Jasper, representing not only Gloria's guilt and self-doubt, but also the ridicule of the real-life critics that lambasted her performances after her mother's suicide. It all adds up to a really thoughtful, sympathetic look at a character while still being able to keep the game's trademark humor and zaniness intact. While these actors are telling a very sad story, they are just so dang silly to look at. Performing the game's usual platforming, puzzle solving, and combat, we help Bonita, and thus Gloria, fight her self-doubt and anger to shine, figuratively and literally once again. Her level ends with Jasper, who was the menacing phantom, big surprise, now tiny and small, with his criticism unable to reach anyone's ears no matter how hard he tries.
Oh, you've got fat arms, you hear me? Big fat arms like a wrestler!
Gloria is at peace with herself and her past, easing her guilt and mood swings, able to finally leave her acting career behind since it was nothing but a source of pain for all her life.
What are you doing out here, Gloria?
I can't remember the last time I came out here at night. It's so beautiful, isn't it?
Again, this is what makes Psychonauts so great. Yes, story fun, gameplay fun, but there's such a kind, beating heart at the center of it all. Sure, you're just playing levels in a video game, trying to progress to finish the whole thing. Nothing new, per se, but the writing and characters inject so much more into the proceedings that each action the player takes as Raz has a lot more meaning. Yes, we need to get Gloria's acting trophy so we can create a disguise to climb the towers of the asylum, but at the same time, we're helping a woman reconcile her past and relationships, and finding the strength to move on. It's honestly a cathartic experience, from being able to empathize with Gloria's plight, and then turn around and help her process it. Overcoming one's own mental health problems and/or learning to live with them is a fraught, difficult experience and a different journey for everyone. Being able to act as a part of that healing process is emotional and affecting, even with the process itself being of the platforming, puzzle-solving game variety in this case. Psychonauts are pitched plainly as psychic secret agents, and they are, but the game proves that they are also truly forces of good to help those who need it with mental problems and not just external issues. Emerging from Gloria's mind and seeing her more healthy than when we entered is a rather quick cutscene, but after witnessing all that we did, with Bonita Soleil locking herself within her dressing room, to finally shining on stage with Jasper's insults going unheard, it's emotional. And it isn't just Gloria. All of the minds of the remaining residents of Thorny Towers are similar. They suffer from various degrees of illnesses, and instead of just allowing them to continue to be locked away from society to be forgotten, Raz enters their minds and helps them heal. Standing back and really taking a look at it, I just believe it to be Psychonauts' secret weapon, what makes the game an all-time classic. Of course, mental illness in the real world isn't such a straightforward thing, and also something to completely fix, as they do in Psychonauts. It is fair to criticize what could be a simplified take on mental illness, but Tim Schafer and his team at Double Fine treated it with a sensitivity that I think should still be commended. The game really cares about these characters, and it absolutely shows, no matter how silly the levels can get, like, for example, the iconic Milkman conspiracy in Asylum Guard Boyd's paranoid mind.
I am a grieving widow.
I am your sister in grief.
Double Fine could have taken the quote-unquote easy way out and just pointed the players at these characters and been like, whoa, aren't these characters crazy? Which would have been a reductive thing to do and played into harmful stereotypes of the mentally ill. There's reasons and story and pathos to what makes these characters tick. Edgar Tegley, a painter in the asylum, isn't just a man with rage issues and delusions, but someone who suffered from seclusion and rejection from his peers as a young man. There's a lot to these characters, and Psychonauts allows players to really invest with them, empathize with them, and ultimately help them down a path to healing. And here's another thing that Psychonauts does so well with its characters. It's not just the people that appear unwell that are dealing with their pasts. Milla Vidello, a famous Psychonauts agent and one of the teachers at Whispering Rock Summer Camp, arrives with her wavy hair and 60s-inspired clothing, appearing as a bit of a hippie. Very much the mother to the campers, she immediately showcased to be very sensitive and protective of the kids, wanting to keep them safe and happy during their time on the grounds. As one of the early levels in the game to teach Raz the art of levitation, an important part of the game's platforming challenges, Mia's mind is a low-danger area that is quite literally a party all the time, filled with disco lights, funky architecture, and bass-heavy disco beats pumping at all times. Her memory vaults are filled with her exciting adventures working with fellow Psychonaut Sasha 9 as they use their mental abilities to bust bad guys across the globe. Adventure, action, romance, it's all very much like what you'd see out of a pulpy comic book. However, if players venture off the beaten path of the level to this nondescript room in Mia's mind, they discover a room decorated like a child's bedroom with a toy chest. Milla, who communicates throughout the level telepathically with Raz to guide him through the levitation trials, warns Raz that he shouldn't be there. She doesn't stop him, but emphasizes that the area is a bit of a party killer and he might not like what he discovers.
Now why would you want to come in here? Come on, this room's no fun. Let's leave, baby.
Figments, one of the game's many collectibles, are even used here to portray not only a jukebox blocking the room's entrance, but also to show various small children playing with toys. Hitting the memory vault reveals the secret. Milla, before she became a Psychonaut, worked at a children's orphanage and dedicated her life to bringing the children there joy and family. However, one day when she was out getting groceries, she returned to a tragic scene. The orphanage was on fire, burning to the ground with the children still inside. Due to her psychic abilities, possibly unlocking at this very moment due to the trauma unfolding, Milla too hears the screams of the children as they're caught in the blaze. It's absolutely horrifying, and immediately deepens Milla as a character. We understand now why she's so protective and caring for the campers. Not only is it in her nature based on her previous job, but an unspeakably tragic event led her to forever strive to keep people safe, children and adults alike, unlike the lives lost in that awful, awful fire. Moving even further in this room, despite her warnings, Raz can leap into the toy chest to learn about a new aspect of Psychonauts' portrayal of the mental world. Nightmares. Representing trauma and guilt in the mental world, nightmares are frightening monsters that can cause serious trouble. Jumping into the chest, Raz discovers Milla has many nightmares within. However, they are safely locked behind bars where they can't get out and run free in her mind. On top of that, the room has windows out to what looks like eternal fire, as whispers of the lost orphans leak through, yelling for Milla to help them and question why she left them to die. It's heavy stuff, and also serves to show how Psychonauts portrays its characters that are considered more mentally well, and really touches on the subject that really none of us are ever truly perfectly okay. Milla has her nightmares handled, able to move on with her life to a certain extent, but that's the thing about trauma. It's hard for it to truly ever go away. Through its imaginative design and storytelling, Psychonauts paints Milla as a woman who is strong, caring, and kind, but still harbors guilt and sadness over being unable to save the children at the orphanage she cared so much about and dedicated her life to. She's able to continue on after many years, to be clear, and help the world with her psychic abilities and strong standing in the Psychonauts as an organization. But her past still exists and she remembers it, though keeps it contained and in check as to not overrun her psyche, breaking her down. It could easily be debated if just locking away these thoughts and feelings in a separate room is truly dealing with it in a healthy way, but it's a glimpse into Milla as a character that's unexpected and fascinating, showcasing how Psychonauts is so thoughtful, caring, and creative about realizing its cast. No one is just one simple stereotype or personality. Given the time to explore who they are as a person from within their mind, this stands as some of the most fleshed out, fascinating, and empathetic cast of characters ever to come to a platforming game, let alone video games as a medium. I want to emphasize that Psychonauts is all in all a pleasant, funny time. Beneath all the humor and irreverence is a story with a kind, caring heart that doesn't shy away from darkness, but outright acknowledges and reckons with it, at least if players know where to look. The relatively straightforward concept of treating the minds of characters as actual levels in a video game is such a great idea, and not only does Psychonauts take advantage of that, but they actively explore the idea of being in the mind of another person and all the trials and tribulations that can entail, from paranoid suburban streets of a conspiracy theorist to becoming a kaiju monster to portray the fear an actual monster has towards Raz. Psychonauts runs a surprising gambit of various minds and various problems people suffer from, ranging more fantastical to the more grounded, like Gloria and her guilt-ridden relationship with her departed mother. It's also refreshing to see that these threads aren't being dropped altogether. Psychonauts in the Realms of Ruin, the VR game released in 2017 to bridge the gap between Psychonauts and Psychonauts 2, further places emphasis on this as we witness Milla and fellow Psychonaut Sasha 9 placed under control by a malevolent force, with Raz the only one to help them out. While Sasha is in a laboratory to stroke his ego and serve his need to be collected and smart at all times, Milla finds herself trapped in a bus underwater filled with random fish. However, from her perspective, the fish are all screaming children and the bus is about to collide with an oncoming train. A rather outlandish situation to be sure, but one that still treats its characters with respect and empathy that was well established in the original game. It's comforting too to know that with Psychonauts 2, Double Fine enlisted the help of clinical psychologist Dr. Rafael Bucamazzo of mental health nonprofit Take This to aid in the development of the sequel. Mental health is a sensitive topic, and it's wonderful to see Double Fine taking the necessary steps to ensure the portrayal of it in video gaming is tasteful and doesn't just fall into over-the-top stereotyping of the mentally ill. Of course, Psychonauts is not a universe rooted in reality with its fantastical worlds and characters. Scientific accuracy is not the aim here, but Psychonauts 2 will be tackling new concepts like addiction, things that are very much rooted in real life. Having the sensitivity to handle those topics without hurting anyone, while also still being thoughtful and entertaining, is definitely a tightrope that can be difficult to walk. but Psychonauts as a franchise seems to be handling it remarkably well, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what they have in store for us in the long-awaited sequel. So now, looking back, this really is what makes Psychonauts the classic it is today. From its genre fusion to its empathy for its characters, the powerful cathartic experience of healing the minds we encounter. With the re-release on Steam along with being included on things like Humble Bundle, the game has now been experienced by millions of players around the world, a far cry from its original release. It isn't just another platforming game, but it's a game that takes cues from the adventure genre and truly dives into its cast of characters to empathize and understand them on a level that isn't seen in gaming often, especially not when it released originally back in 2005. It's the reason Psychonauts holds such a dear place in my heart, creating a memorable experience every time I play as I discover even more Easter eggs and secrets that deepens the narrative and arcs of its cast that leaves such a lasting impression all these years later. Thank goodness we're getting a sequel is all I'm saying. It's such an amazing concept that can be mined even further, so I'm beyond thankful that we're finally getting more. Psychonauts is a true gaming classic and should be experienced by everyone who has a passing interest in video games in general. There's a lot there to discover, as long as you're willing to look for it.